What's going on, XCFL, and welcome back to the Hitstick podcast. We have episode 20 for you guys today, and it is a good one. One of my favorite episodes we do here in the XCFL, and it is our top 25 players from the previous Madden cycle. So today we'll kind of break down the Madden 18 cycle and what players kind of left their mark, made a big impact throughout the entire cycle. These will be the guys who either stuffed the stat sheets or their impact just was, so obvious to the rest of the league that they just had to get their name up on this list. We're going to start at number 25 and work our way to the front, to number 1. Let's go ahead and get this guy going here. So, number 25 for the Madden 18 cycle, we have the only cornerback making our list, and it is Jalen Ramsey of the Jacksonville Jaguars. He played 6 seasons. That was the full time with us, obviously. 94 games played, 308 tackles, and in that span, he picked off 35 passes, 11 tackles for loss, 83 passes deflected, and also returned 9 interceptions for touchdowns. The only corner of the entire cycle to make it. It was a rough year for corners, especially putting up stats. So what Ramsey was able to do in that Jacksonville defense was pretty incredible. So Jalen Ramsey comes in at number 25. We are going to go to number 24, and it is going to be Ashley Stewart, a defensive end from the Baltimore Ravens. The first thing that jumps off the screen is Stewart only played 2 seasons, but in those 2 seasons, those 32 games, he put up 41.5 sacks, 95 tackles, 23 tackles for loss, and forced 5 fumbles. Big-time stats from a guy that only played 2 seasons. I'm curious to see what would have happened if he would have gotten the league a little bit earlier. The numbers could have just been off the charts. He might have found himself way higher up on this list. So Ashley Stewart, the defensive end from Baltimore, coming in at 24. We'll move to 23 here. And it is going to be Khalil Mack from the Oakland Raiders. He played all 6 seasons, 92 games played. 104.5 sacks in 92 games to go along with 90 tackles for loss, 356 total tackles. Mack had another big cycle. He did a lot of the same last year. I think he found himself up in the top 25 last season as well, or last cycle as well. He's able to put up some big numbers with Coach Doss there at Oakland, and I look for more of the same coming in Madden 19. We'll jump up to number 22, and it is going to be wide receiver Dixon Bishop from the Detroit Lions. In just 3 seasons, Bishop caught 197 balls for 4,500 yards, 52 touchdowns in just 48 games, and averaged a massive 23.1 yards per catch. Bishop was a monster for that Detroit Lions offense. 6'5", 225 pounds, 4.3 blazing speed. This guy is what made the Lions offense go, and it's nice to see him rewarded with a top 25 spot. Coming in at number 22, Dixon Bishop. We'll move to number 21 here, and it's going to be Gordon Fedorowicz, the middle linebacker for the Cleveland Browns. He got drafted early on in the cycle. He played 5 seasons, 73 games played, and he kind of was a stat sheet stuffer. 394 tackles, 58 tackles for a loss, 15.5 sacks to go along with 16 picks, 50 passes defended, 8 forced fumbles, 1 fumble recovered, and 3 touchdowns. He was the main guy of this Cleveland Browns defense. They were real successful all cycle. Had a couple different owners, but Fedorowicz was kind of that piece that held the entire defense together. And I mean, you can see he stuffed the stat sheet in that 3-4 defense, and definitely earned his spot at number 21 in the top 25 here. We'll move to number 20, and it is going to be the free safety from Dallas, Byron Jones. Jones had a massive cycle, 96 games played, 363 tackles, 46 interceptions, 66 passes defended, 6 forced fumbles, 4 fumbles recovered, 8 touchdowns. Jones, I mean, he had a couple huge seasons toward the end, and I mean, he was feared by majority of the league. What he did in this Dallas secondary was a game changer, and he played a huge role in the back-to-back-to-back Super Bowls for the Dallas Cowboys throughout the Madden 18 cycle. So Byron Jones coming in at number 20. Number 19, we got a big-name receiver, Odell Beckham Jr. Odell split time between the Giants, and then towards the end, he finished up his career with the Baltimore Ravens, where he definitely thrived, putting up some huge seasons. In just 6 seasons, caught 343 balls for 7,000 yards, 68 touchdowns, 20.8 yards per catch. It was a big year of passing in the XCFL, and Beckham definitely was in 2 high-powered passing offenses. It was with the Giants early on and then finishing up with the Ravens. 68 touchdowns in 6 seasons. That means he's scoring at least 10 a year. Beckham definitely did not disappoint, and we look for more of the same this cycle with the New York Giants. We'll jump over to 18, and it is going to be Tuatonga Hopkins, the free safety from Indianapolis. We call him V-Hop because that name is just way too long to pronounce. But V-Hop kind of was one of the better drafted players in the XCFL throughout the Madden 18 cycle. 80 games played, he picked off 33 passes, defended 68 more, 377 tackles, 12 tackles for loss. He didn't miss a game. He played every game, no injuries, 7 forced fumbles, 9 touchdowns. V-Hop was sensational all year for the Indianapolis Colts before being dealt in a huge blockbuster deal towards the end of the cycle to the Philadelphia Eagles. But V-Hop had a couple big double-digit INT seasons, and what he was able to do for that Indianapolis defense was special. Definitely helped get the Colts on track, and another great draft pick by Sean White. We'll move to number 17, and it is going to be DeAndre Hopkins, the wide receiver from the Houston Texans. Hopkins dominated cornerbacks in the Madden 18 cycle. 96 games played, 68 touchdowns, 7,000 yards, almost 400 catches, 18.8 yards per catch. Hopkins, the longevity, he never really faded off. He had huge seasons year after year after year with Coach Boone and that Houston Texan offense. It didn't seem to matter who the quarterback was, whether it was Deshaun Watson, Hudson Fowler, whoever it was, that freaking David Fales. Hopkins was able to produce, and he was a huge reason why that Houston Texan offense was always towards the top of the XCFL throughout the Madden 18 cycle. We will jump up to 16 here, and it is going to be Karan Shade, the middle linebacker from the New York Jets. In just 4 seasons, Shade put up massive tackle numbers, 377 tackles, 56 tackles for a loss, 13.5 sacks, 11 interceptions, 31 passes defended, 12 forced fumbles, 6 fumbles recovered. He was a monster. There's no other word for this guy. He was 89 speed, 91 excel in the middle, and just wreaked havoc throughout all defenses, for all offenses. Sorry about that. Shade was one of those drafted players. I think he got picked 5th overall, and he did not disappoint. One of the most talented draft classes, and he definitely shined in that very talented draft class. So number 16 is Karan Shade, the middle linebacker for the New York Jets. We will move on to our top 15 here, 10 down, 15 to go, and it is none other than Landon Collins, the strong safety from the New York Giants, the second Giant making the list with no help to Chadwick. 96 games played, 434 tackles for Collins, 19 tackles for loss, 39 picks, 76 passes defended, 15 forced fumbles. This guy did everything for this team. I think last cycle he ended up finishing in the top 3. So it's definitely a little more competition this time around. The offensive side of the ball definitely dominated, I think, in Madden 18. But what Landon Collins did cannot be overlooked. The massive tackle numbers, big-time forced fumbles. He's able to ball skills. He's got the picks, the passes defended. Landon Collins is the real deal, one of the best safeties the XCFL has seen, and that was a great season by Landon Collins. Spent all 6 seasons with the Giants as well. Moving on, number 14 is a familiar name to the XCFL, and it is running back Keith Marshall of the Washington Redskins. In just 89 games, Marshall was able to run for 7,589 yards, 74 total touchdowns, averaging a massive 6.3 yards per carry. I don't know what it is, but when Jack gets his hands on Keith Marshall, good things happen. This is back-to-back huge cycles for Keith Marshall, and I think we all expect a lot of the same. Someone please draft him in the free agency draft so Jack does not get his hands on him again. Moving on, number 13 on the list is another running back, and it is Ezekiel Elliott from the Dallas Cowboys. So Zeke only played 74 games. He was banged up a lot last cycle, but he was able to score 83 touchdowns in just 74 games, 7,226 yards, averaging 6.5 yards per carry. If this guy would have stayed healthy, he could have been easily up in the top 5, but he comes in at 13 this time, just, not a lot of games played, but 83 touchdowns in 74 games is nothing to laugh at. That is for sure. And he's definitely one of the big reasons why those Cowboys were able to get those back-to-back-to-back Super Bowls like we mentioned before. We will move on to number 12, and it is going to be middle linebacker Deone Bucannon. Bucannon started his career with the Detroit Lions, got traded to the Indianapolis Colts, and really put up some massive seasons, had a few Pro Bowl snubs in there and didn't get to make it, but the numbers don't lie. 487 tackles, 83 tackles for a loss, 20 and a half sacks to go with 24 picks, 10 forced fumbles, 6 touchdowns. Buchanan is one of those hybrid safety middle linebacker type players with elite speed, great ball skills, and he showed it. 487 tackles. There's not many players that put up more tackles in a 6-season span. You might see a few coming up here, but Buchanan, what he was able to do, the combination of tackles, sacks, tackles for loss, intercept, everything. Huge cycle for Deone Bucannon. He got traded from the Cardinals right before the actual cycle kicked off. Got traded from the Cardinals to the Lions in a big trade. I think it involved Darius Slay. But yeah, big season, big cycle for Deone Bucannon with the Indianapolis Colts. We'll move to number 11, and it is another middle linebacker, and it's Ryan Shazier from the Pittsburgh Steelers. And the first thing that just jumps off the page is 562 total tackles for Ryan Shazier. Gigantic tackle numbers from Shazier. 82 tackles for a loss, 18.5 sacks, 11 picks, 52 passes defended. Shazier was the man in the middle for those Pittsburgh Steelers. He was in the top 25 players last season. The combination of size, speed, athleticism is just something. Shazier will see his name on this list every single season as long as he stays healthy. Every single cycle as long as he stays healthy. All right, cracking the top 10, and we are going to start with wide receiver Jarvis Landry. Landry played for a lot of different teams. He bounced around. He started with the Dolphins, obviously. Found his way to the Lions, where he had a couple huge seasons, and then ended up with the Baltimore Ravens, where he had a bunch more huge seasons. 93 games, 363 catches, 7,192 yards, 70 touchdowns for the man. I think he had 2 18-touchdown seasons, one with the Lions and one with the Ravens. Averaged 19.8 yards per catch. Landry made a living mossing defenders. He one hand, two hand, whatever it was, he just dominated secondaries all across the XCFL for the full 6 seasons. It was pretty amazing. These numbers could have even been bigger. The Dolphins owner who had him wasn't a big fan, and when he shipped him to Detroit, it kind of started off, and then as his career, the regression was starting to hit, he still was able to put up gigantic seasons with the Baltimore Ravens. All right, Jarvis Landry, number 10. Moving on to number 9, we have defensive end Nicholas Jefferson from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Jefferson was a late round pick. He turned into a stud. 6 seasons, 93 games played, 362 tackles, 100 tackles for a loss, 111.5 sacks. Crazy big numbers out of a late round pick. The Buccaneers found a gem in Nicholas Jefferson. ARV loves his drafting, and man, did he get a good one with Jefferson here. To come in at number 9 as a drafted player is pretty impressive. With Nicholas Jefferson, number 9. Moving on to number 8, it is none other than the best wide receiver in XCFL history, Gordon Todd. Not in XCFL history, that would be Jacoby Askew. But Gordon Todd is right up there with him, maybe 1, 2, who knows, 1A, 1B. Todd got drafted by the Philadelphia Eagles. He was the first monster receiver to kind of set the tone for the XCFL. 6'5", 230 pounds. Played 2 seasons with the Eagles, 2 seasons with the Lions, and I mean the numbers speak for themselves. 64 games played, caught 274 balls for 6,500 yards and 65 touchdowns. Averaged 23.8 yards per catch. He was a nightmare for defenders and was a huge reason at least the Lions found success, and the Eagles ended up getting to the postseason with Todd as well. It didn't matter who the quarterback was. It didn't matter who was defending him. Todd ran a go route, and it was completed every single time. He was a stud. Definitely gets his name up in there in XCFL history. He's in the XCFL Creative Player Hall of Fame as well. But number 8, Gordon Todd. All right, coming in at number 7 is running back Darius Jackson from the Oakland Raiders. Jackson started the cycle out red hot. No one could keep out of the end zone. 85 games played, 99 touchdowns, 932 carries for 6,616 yards. Averaged 7.1 yards per carry for the cycle behind this Oakland Raiders offensive line. Definitely what kept the Raiders offense moving. That Raiders defense and the run game is what really kept them winning games. Doss had a huge cycle for them. But Jackson, his career kind of got cut a little short. He didn't get a full last season. I think the Raiders let him hit free agency because he wanted to get paid. Somebody else picked him up, and he really wasn't able to do much his last season. So that, it's really only 5 seasons. And he scored 99 touchdowns, which is incredible. One of the best running backs for the cycle, that is for sure. Number 7, Darius Jackson. We will move on to number 6. We're nearing the top 5 here. Number 6 is one of the most dominant players the XCFL has seen. Despite, if he didn't have a couple bad seasons, this guy could have easily found himself in the top 3. But it is, I say a bad season, but this guy didn't have bad seasons. Aaron Donald, the defensive end for the Los Angeles Rams. 342 tackles, 98 tackles for loss, 114 sacks. Donald got in the backfield whenever, however he wanted. He was a dominant force on that Rams defensive line all season long. And he earned his number 6 spot here in the XCFL top 25 players of the Madden 18 cycle. Alrighty, we got our top 5 here, and it is going to start with another defensive end, Myles Garrett from the Cleveland Browns. Garrett, in 96 games, 114 sacks, 95 tackles, 395 tackles for loss, 382 tackles, 8 forced fumbles. Garrett, everyone knows he's a stud right out of the box, and I think he's just going to get better and better. Elite strength, elite size, elite speed. He now has pass rushing moves. Myles Garrett had a massive Madden 18 cycle, and it was a big reason those Cleveland Browns are competing for the AFC North every single season. Alrighty, we will jump to number 4, and it is going to be middle linebacker of the Carolina Panthers, Luke Kuechly. When you talk about the guy who led the league in tackles every single season, look no further than Luke Kuechly. 649 tackles in 6 seasons, 95 tackles for a loss, 14 sacks, 66 passes defended, 11 forced fumbles, 8 touchdowns. I'm not sure if it was because the Panthers had no success all cycle long, so Kuechly was just making tackles all over the place, or if Kuechly just made tackles all over the place. But regardless, the beast that Luke Kuechly is, the speed, the football IQ, off the charts. He's another guy that'll find himself on the top 25 list as long as he stays healthy every single cycle, just based off his attributes alone. But number 4 will be Luke Kuechly. We got our top 3 here, and these were tough. 2 and 3, I think, can go in any order, but we went with number 3, defensive end DeForest Buckner from the Atlanta Falcons. He started a little quick stint with the 49ers, but then got moved to the Falcons pretty early on. The number that just jumps off the page, 90 games played, 128.5 sacks. The Atlanta Falcons had a tremendous Madden 18 cycle, and that defensive line was a huge part of it. DeForest Buckner led the way. You paired him with Jamal Perkins, a couple other guys they drafted as well, and what Buckner was able to do to opposing tackles was scary. He played a little defensive tackle, a little defensive end. They kind of moved him around, and no matter where he played, he found success. 128.5 sacks in 90 games. Some big-time sack seasons from this guy. And the guy he probably, either way, 2A, 2B, but is Leonard Fournette, the running back from the Jacksonville Jaguars. Fournette won Most Outstanding Player in the XCFL this season. 86 games played, carried the ball 1,500 times for 9,783 yards, 116 total touchdowns, a touchdown machine. He was the reason the Jacksonville Jaguars found success. It felt like every game he was rushing for somewhere near 200 yards. He was not able to be tackled. He was a truck stick machine. 116 total touchdowns. You just can't. I don't know, just an absolute monster. Leonard Fournette, huge cycle, had a couple different users, but still was able to produce no matter who had the sticks in their hand. So Leonard Fournette comes in at number 2. And obviously, the number 1 player of the Madden 18 cycle is none other than Josh Jones, the strong safety from the Detroit Lions. What this guy, I've talked about, I was the Detroit Lions. What Josh Jones is able to do this cycle was just incredible. In a no-user league for a guy to intercept 68 passes, it puts him like 4th all-time on the list, and he only played 6 seasons. He had a season where he picked off 20 passes. He had, every season was double-digit INTs, but 96 games played, 414 tackles, 34 tackles for a loss, 68 interceptions, 89 passes defended, 21 forced fumbles, 11 fumbles recovered, and he scored 20 touchdowns. He scored 20 touchdowns as a safety. That's more than some running backs and some receivers get in a 6-season period. Josh Jones was dominant all cycle long, and it was one of those players you really had to game plan for and see where he was on the field before you snapped the ball, because the way he broke in the ball was incredible, and definitely earned the number 1 player of the Madden 18 cycle. What Jones was able to do in that Detroit Lions secondary was special, and that's really the only way to describe him. He was a special player, once in a generation type player. But that is our top 25. We have a couple honorable mentions we'll just throw out here, guys that almost made the list. Wide receiver Roland Mumphrey of the New England Patriots, free safety Tyrann Honey Badger Matthew, running back Marcus Mason from the Cleveland Browns, middle linebacker Barry Roper from the Houston Texans, free safety Long Duncan of the Miami Dolphins, middle linebacker Trenton Morgan of the Miami Dolphins and the Cincinnati Bengals, middle linebacker Chandler West from the Colts, middle linebacker Jatavis Brown from the Redskins, strong safeties Jamal Adams and Carl Joseph from the Titans and the Titans and Jets for Adams, and then Joseph played for the Raiders all the cycle. Middle linebacker for the Eagles Jordan Hicks put up big numbers, and then the only quarterback who even almost cracked the list was Blair Triplett from the Washington Redskins. There were a couple other guys that had big seasons, but Triplett was able to do it a little bit longer. But yeah, so that'll do it for our top 25, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is always a fun episode, kind of see where guys end up in the top 25, if they make the top 25. The Hitstick podcast will be back later this week. We did our Madden 19 team selection, and we're going to kind of come on, break down the divisions, some matchups we like, and kind of just talk about the Madden 19 cycle a little bit. We will have our user Hall of Fame induction. The 2 guys that are going to make it to the Hall of Fame, those are being voted on currently. It's an exciting time in the XCFL. We're back in business. The Madden 19 cycle is right around the corner. Looking to probably start between preseason weeks 3 and 4, hopefully. Maybe they'll get another roster update out, and we can kind of get this thing rocking and rolling. But yeah, thank you guys so much for tuning in. It's always fun. And get ready for the Madden 19 cycle, because it is go time, fellas. I'm Nick Larson. I'm your host, and I'm out of here. I can't stop.